Would you consider yourself a performance coach, Mike?
Yeah, performance coach probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, so he's a performance coach and he's very much a good performance coach. And so he has been, how long have you been doing it for like over, I'd say over 7 years now? I think you've been doing it for a while.
No, I started in '08. As far as like a performance coach, like strictly where we had a program set up, that's been 4 years. You're talking about since I've been coaching in this arena, it was 2008. So that's been 15 years.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I would say you're an expert. You over 10 years is where you're close to like mastery. So you consider yourself
Yeah.
an expert on it. Absolutely.
So I remember you when you wrote that article about like women needs therapy, and I understood 100% where you were coming from with it. So I remember because every week I interview different therapists, different like experts on that field, and I was telling them the idea, and some agreed. Some agreed. If as I said, I live in the Caribbean and I have a lot of friends who are in the Caribbean and Latin America, and most men hate therapy.
Most men
Yeah, I
hate.
don't. Yeah, I don't hate therapy. What I said was, and a lot of people had some issue with this, is that men have a burden of performance that women don't have in general. Not some women do have a burden of performance. Don't get me wrong. If you're an attorney, if you are, but what the reason why you have a burden of performance as a woman is because you're in a male dominated job generally. Now, unless we're talking about even a WNBA player, like for when women in general, when they're very attractive, they don't have a burden of performance like a man does. They have a burden of performance, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
If you go to a therapist for a woman and you go to a therapist for a man, a therapist for a woman can say, here's what we do to get you into the perfect emotional state. And those things are effective and those things are useful. But
Yeah.
when we have the same therapist go to a man and say, we need to get you in the perfect emotional state, he's like, but I have to also run this company and perform. That's why I'm a performance coach, perform to a certain level. And my statement was,
Yeah.
if you have a therapist who is so woke and egalitarian that he treats men the same way he treats women, he's not a good therapist. And as a man, you probably shouldn't see him because as a man, no matter what your therapist tells you, you're not special and you always have a burden of performance. That's what I was trying to say about it.
So I agreed what you're saying, and I understand. So I wasn't saying that you hate like it's a indictment on that. It was just someone I was a counselor I was speaking to was like was remarking on how difficult it was to have to counsel men because of that, like one of it's an ego thing. A lot of men, they don't want to go to a therapist because their thing is, who are you to tell me what I'm doing with my life? You know what I mean? So there was a difficulty in it. So I think you touched on a point that I feel like some men can relate to. And yes, 100%, even with me reaching out and interviewing therapists each week, the majority are women. It's very difficult and rare to find male therapists. And even therapists, like one of the male therapists was saying it to me. He was like, we need more male therapists for men because
Sorry, go ahead.
Under the age of 30, it's 1 out of every 20 therapists is male. This very, very like therapy is almost completely dominated by women. Now, here's the thing. Therapy, I think, is good for women and it is dominated by women and it can be good for men. Like, for instance, Stephen, if you told me right now you had a therapist for me and this guy completely or woman completely and totally understood my burden of performance, meaning if I felt upset or angry or whatever, that comes second to getting the fucking job done. As long as I had a therapist who grasped that concept, I think I'd be good. You understand what I'm saying? What I can't have is someone telling me to relax or telling me in those type of situations, because at some point, no matter what, the problem has to get solved, no matter how I fucking feel about it. And so that's the issue that I found. And I'll just be honest with you, like, and again, this is not all women. There's absolutely some women out there who are cardiologists, and there's women out there who have massive burden of performance. The majority of women I meet do not have the same burden of performance that a guy who's running a construction crew does, or a guy who's running a military campaign. It's just very different. And so for us, we don't have the luxury of caring about our feelings to the extent our mental health is still important. Men commit suicide at a far greater rate than women do. And it's because we don't take care of our mental health. I fully agree to that. But the problem is the solution isn't to use then female therapy techniques on men. That's not the solution. The solution is to have a different type of therapy for masculine men. And I hate it. By the way, when I say masculine, they could be gay masculine men or straight masculine men. It's just there's a way that masculine men need to be approached, and therapy and therapy need to be used on them in a different way than it is for a woman, or else it just doesn't work. Telling me to go into my feelings and then like I don't have time to do that. I have to perform. We need to start with performance. If you ever watch this Bobby Axelrod, what is it? Billions? You remember the show Billions?
Yeah, I remember Billions.
The lady psychologist who she was a PhD who was in the place. I forgot her name. Rhodes. I forgot what Wendy Rhodes. Wendy Rhodes' character is a performance coach. She's not a therapist. She's a performance coach. I'm also not a therapist. I'm a performance coach. No, I'm not a licensed. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I am a performance coach. Meaning, what'll happen is, and this is where it comes a very big difference between men and women. A lot of times for men, if we go out as a group and we accomplish a goal together, you'll be amazed at how many. The depression just gone. Wait, what happened to the depression? Is gone. Oh, I felt loneliness. Well, let's go out and let's figure out a way to become attractive to the opposite sex. Let's get ourselves in better physical shape, and then let's go ahead and get a super awesome friend group. All of a sudden, loneliness, Stephen, gone, just gone like that. There's just these therapeutic solutions for men that don't necessarily exist with women. And I'll give you another big one, and that is testosterone. Testosterone is not something that's prescribed by a psychiatrist, but there's a lot of psychiatrists out there that have prescribed Zoloft to people who really, if they had just got their levels checked, they'd actually be much happier. And there's also a reason why men suffer from depression less is because we have higher testosterone than females do. So that's where that comes from. And again, if you live a sedentary existence, like for instance, you're exceptionally wealthy, you live with your parents, and you have no intention whatsoever of going out, getting a job, or starting a business, then I think the same type of therapy, non-performance based therapy that females experience, I think that might work for you. But if you're in a situation where, like, I have 60 employees that work for me, we have to make payroll every month, and I have to go out there and grind every day so that we make enough money to pay our employees, then I don't have the luxury of sitting there focusing on my feelings. Or even if I do, the job still has to get done no matter how I feel about it.
All right, I'm gonna give you an example of something that happened to me. I remember, I grew up around feminists. Two of my sisters are staunch feminists, right? Yeah, so I grew up around feminists. So my sister gave me, I don't know if you've ever read Bell Hooks. My sister gifted me Bell Hooks' book, Feminism is for Everybody. And so I always grew up with them. And my dad is sick. He had like 4 strokes. And so when he had like the second stroke, and we were going to the hospital like to see him, my sister like pulled me aside. My sister is a staunch feminist lesbian, and she was like, listen, I need you to man up. You can't show any emotions. You can't be sad. I need you to man up and deal with Dad when we go into the hospital. And I felt like that shit stuck with me. I never said it to her, because I was like, I've always been raised feminist. I've always been raised to be in touch with my emotions. But in the time of like high pressure and in like very like serious traumatic experiences, I still had the expectation of manning up and of being in control of my emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like,
isn't it funny how that works?
Yeah, so like, and I don't think she even realized it when she said it to me. You know what I mean? But it stuck with me in terms of, okay, as a man, even with my emotions and even with the trauma, I still have to be a man in life, in heavy situations.
Imagine an existence with no internet, no infrastructure, no electricity, no running water, nothing. And you live in an agrarian society out in a village somewhere. And every day is a survival scenario. That whole situation where like, I need you to man up, that's every day for our ancestors. Every day was like that. And because of that, no matter how offensive this becomes to people, gender roles were defined 50,000 years ago, not because of a patriarchy by men, but because that was necessary. Men were bigger and stronger, and therefore the bigger and stronger gender needed to go hunt and protect. And that's the way things worked back then. They don't have to be that way now. And so because of that, because we get further and further away from a survival scenario, like you were mentioning before, Stephen, then you can have an entire life as a man where you don't have to man up. You can be super in touch with your emotions. You can wear a pink dress and start dating Megan Fox. You can paint your hair all kinds of funny fucking colors. You can go snitch to the feds, and all of a sudden, women are still attracted to you. This is a very different world. You could be addicted to heroin and fucking get tattoos all over your face, and Post Malone. Now your women find you incredibly attractive. Like the whole concept of manning up isn't just because it's not necessary. There are other ways of survival now. That's the reason why there's a lot of confusion when it comes to that. But for those men who are famous and want to live that lifestyle, that's one thing. But for the rest of us, that we have to perform. Normal men have to perform in order to survive.